Egghead Island. Egghead Island. This chapter just took an arc that I was already so excited about. Thinking about it as a classic transitional arc within One Piece that was going to take us from point A to point B, learning so much about the lore of the series, has become much more than any of us, especially me, could have anticipated. But after this week's chapter, with narrator San coming in and delivering one of the most epic, bone-chilling, goosebumps-inducing speeches in the series, it's like, man, oh man, what is truly about to be in store for us here on Egghead? Because it's starting to feel more like Marineford than Egghead Island. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it feels like so much is about to culminate here, and this is only the first part of the final saga. Like, Oda, what are we cooking? What is being cooked in this chapter? This entire chapter before this narration was already it paced extremely well, showcasing multiple different things, right? Setting up what is going to take place here in the next couple of chapters. But man, the moment this narration started, everything hit different. Every single thing hit different. Like, what does all of this mean, man? The numbers, Mason, what does it mean? This panel, this entire page right here of Kizaru and Saint Garcia Saturn with the rest of the Marines that are pulling up is just like, man, total war imminent, bro. And then the appearance of Luffy and the boys, like, man, dude. And the fact that all of this is going to culminate tomorrow has my mind just running at the speed of light, to where I'm just wondering, does it mean everything's going to culminate tomorrow literally? As in, this is going to be an all-day, all-night event that is going to, like, culminate tomorrow? Or is it just that the news reports, that Big News Morgans is going to put out a report to the world tomorrow? I don't know. I don't know, man. And the Katak and York, the baddie, is the one that was behind this all along. This world ain't big enough for two, you know? Like, come on, man. So much greatness was in this week's chapter. Oh, this is my first time seeing the coloring for this week as well. Just craziness all around, man. Egghead, and then the Sanji stuff, Luffy and Lucci and Kaku being Usopp. I mean, it was a fun chapter. It was a really, really fun chapter. And today I have a bunch of comments that I would like to get to here. So many talking about the future of the series now, thanks to what took place in this chapter. It feels like every single chapter in Egghead is game-changing in some way. But this one, because of the previous narration given to us in chapter 800, which, let me go ahead and reread that one more time, because I can never get enough of this, man, you know? I can never get enough of this. So, it's just 7 odd and mighty warriors labeled themselves the followers of Straw Hat Luffy. After this moment, they will each grow in power until they eventually cause a great incident of historic proportions. But for the moment, that is a story no one knows about yet. Like, bro, is this the incident? Is this where the Grand Fleet comes in? But let's get into the comments. Before we get into the members, there were 2 comments that coincided with each other I wanted to start off with. And these 2 comments are, because since they go with each other, I want to read them at the same time. So, the first one comes in from Don't Blink, who says, do you think Kuma will arrive at Egghead Island during the chaos and pimp smack Luffy's crew again to safety? Or possibly Kizaru slash Saint J. Garcia Saturn? And this goes perfectly in line with what my boy Dax Sake said. So, Dax Sake states that single Bonnie panel is going to matter in a big way. Just like her dad saved everyone 2 years ago, I think she's about to do the same via her awakening. Whatever she learned from those memories will show her that she does need to save Vegapunk and the Straw Hats. And the trauma / situation will cause her to awaken. Her power is based more on timelines than ages. I've never thought about that being a possibility. So I imagine this would maybe warp their current timeline to be the one where they successfully escape. And maybe that's why we see the Straw Hat ships sailing towards the world government ships all alone so confidently. Also, Robin is about to impress us, as she tends to do. She's good at seeing through deception as she's headed towards the basement, and I think that's going to matter. She also knows a lot about the Revolutionary Army, and that could tie into what Bonnie learned from the memory. So I want to talk about this because I've never heard about Bonnie's fruit potentially being something else than it actually is, going through timelines rather than ages. So when Oda, of course, introduced the concept of time travel back in with chapter 919, back in Wano, and letting us know that the scabbards came from the past, introducing the time fruit with Lady Toki, a lot of us wondered what more is going to be added when it comes to messing with time and timelines and stuff like that within One Piece. I know it's a topic that is sort of taboo, similar to what Rocks, right, we'll talk about within our community, and rightfully so, right, for timelines and time travel and stuff of that nature to be brought up. This is a heavy turnoff for anyone, because normally when this is brought up, it's not executed well within a particular series, right? Like, it's very rare that when timelines or alternate realities and stuff like that is brought up, that it is actually executed to its fullest potential. Sometimes it's executed well, sometimes it's executed poorly, but only very rarely is it executed to the highest level. And I have a few instances in my mind where it's executed to absolute perfection, but I don't want to spoil said series, right? So this is my whole thing with this. Because it's Egghead Island, because it's the island of the future, if there's any arc that's going to mess with alternate realities and timelines, it could be this one. And this reminds me whenever he had that interview with Aoyama Gosho, and he was talking about Gear 5, how he knew it was going to be a divisive thing, but he wanted to do it because deep within his heart, not only did he believe that it was the best thing for the story, but it was how he wanted to have more fun with the series, right? Like, this was something that he truly wanted to do. He understood it was a risk, but to him it was a risk worth taking because he wanted to do it with every fiber in his being. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he said the same thing when it comes to the final saga, that he wants to have as much fun as possible before the series comes to a close. So introducing divisive concepts like this is not new for One Piece. As a matter of fact, he's been doing this in the entire series, but especially within the past few arcs where he has been utilizing more ambitious ideas and concepts. So, Dak, if something like this is true, and her ability is more based on timelines than ages, then I wonder how he's going to explore said thing within this series. I mean, obviously, with someone like Vegapunk, who has already, implied quantum mechanics being present within the series and stuff of that nature, I wonder how that would play into it if this is true. Right, and that's so fascinating to me, so fascinating to me. So warping it into it becoming the reality. See, but this is the thing, right? Either Oda could literally show and warp their current timeline to be the one where they successfully escape, or we take the classic Oda route and make it to where originally this was supposed to be an inescapable situation. However, due to the Straw Hats defying their fate, the Straw Hats going against the nature itself, their desires, their will, overcoming the will of nature, they managed to survive, right? And I think that's a very Oda thing to explore, especially with what he's been doing lately thematically in regards to the series. So that is also something that could be explored, right? Where it doesn't necessarily have to be a different timeline, but you could have Vegapunk say there's like 3,000 different realities and in none of them we escape. And this actually manages to be the one where we escape because Luffy is the way that he is, because the Straw Hats are the way that they are, because the Grand Fleet potentially shows up, because the Cross Guild potentially shows up, stuff like that. And I think that would be the equivalent of like what happened in Logtown when Luffy was saved before he was executed, right? Whether it was by nature itself or Dragon showing up at the last second, wherever the case may be, he was saved before that stuff took place. And to me, I think if we were to get an exploration of that once again here, it would be really key, considering the fact it would actually be really poetic if Dragon were to be the one to save them out of an inescapable situation once again, right? Now, on to your comment about Robin. Robin is about to impress us as she tends to do. Robin is going to be really, really key coming in the next few chapters, especially if she really ends up fighting York. As you said, she's going to see him through deception, currently heading towards the basement, and she knows a little about the Revolutionary Army. So whatever happens now in regards to Bonnie, obviously, once we get the flashback and we understand all of Bonnie's, like why Bonnie was breaking down in the way she was in this chapter, we're going to understand it, right? Because Bonnie, of course, we're seeing the aftermath of her experiencing the memories. But once we actually see the memories themselves, and we see how she had to witness all that from a first-person perspective, being unable to do anything about it, that is going to be very difficult. Very difficult, because as we've stated before, the Bonnie Kuma flashback is going to be different than the other flashbacks in the series, but the other ones were like memories, right? Reminiscing and about the past, and or being regretful about the past, or just thinking back to the past. That's how those flashbacks were. They were always, going back in time. This one is an actual, like, you're living through another individual's reality in Kuma's reality. So being unable to do anything about it goes right in line with the, not having the freedom to be able to change things, right? And Bonnie might find solace in someone like Luffy, who is extremely free. So but like you said, if her fruit awakens because of this, it goes back into the thing about desires, right? And desires. And then that actually reminds me about another comment that was brought up. Where is it? I believe Arend brought it up right here. So Arend says, Oda casually and brilliantly exploring the depth of the meaning of desire for us human beings. I'd love to hear you expand on this theme. I feel like Oda wants to make a very clear point about his perspective of the difference and similarities about dreams and desires, and how close one could be to crossing the line between one and the other. We saw in this chapter desire is a very human concept, capable of to enclose the most primal urges and worst of our nature. Maybe want to reread chapter 1069, and I think I had never understood that Luffy is literally a manifestation of the desire of hope. I thought about the relation between freedom and hope, and Googling found this quote on the internet: freedom to engage hope as a means to push beyond the boundaries of reality. That is a fantastic way of defining Monkey D. Luffy in so many different scenarios. So Luffy is the Warrior of Hope, 479 title, and the Warrior of Liberation, 1044 title. My final thoughts of series are about how back in 1069, Vegapunk mentions devil fruit powers and manifestations from dreams, wishes, desires of someone else that existed in different dimensions, probably breaking the fourth wall, talking about us, our dimension, and how when we were kids, we wished to have superpowers and become X or Y. That is a factual statement. Kids in the One Piece world from hundreds of years ago, even more than the Void Century, could have been the source of the existence of the fruits. I immediately taken to imagine a particular kid somewhere in history whose desire was that people were free, had a reason to always smile and believe in hope, even if he himself was living in darkness and chaos. That is a fantastic statement. That kid never lost a smile. He could not only see a silver lining, but his smile was as bright as the sun itself. That kid maybe was the first Joy Boy. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. This entire comment is sensational. But that final line is literally what I believe took place. It's actually what I believe took place. And as a matter of fact, I would take it even a step further. I do believe that one of the biggest implications as to what actually took place with Joy Boy, with his desire, his manifestation of that desire, is what took place with Luffy when he woke back up after getting knocked out by Kaido. And he awakened because he was seemingly dead. And that revival brought out the Gear 5 version of Luffy. Now, let me tell you something. Living in an era where you did not know what fruits are, imagine you see someone who has just been killed before your very eyes, and then they resurrect as a different being before your very eyes. What are you going to call them? What are you going to call them? There's only one thing you can call them: a deity, a celestial being, a god in certain senses. I mean, bro, if you were to see someone do that before your very eyes, manifesting their will, manifesting their desire to not only become free, to live again and see another day. I mean, dude, that could have been our biggest indication as to what took place back in the Void Century that allowed Joy Boy to be seen in the way that he was. And I love your thoughts on, so let's go ahead and go back to the beginning of this comment in regards to the differences and similarities about dreams and desires and the meaning of desire, right? One of my favorite things about One Piece has been how he has explored the concept of dreams through multiple different characters. That's why chapter 225 means so much to me. Because chapter 225 showcases dreams from multiple different perspectives. Somebody who has given up on their dreams, somebody who's willing to do anything necessary in order to achieve their dreams, and someone who's currently on pace to with a belief that literally anything is possible to make dreams a reality, and is not willing to deal with other individuals who don't believe that his dream is a reality. If you're out of the conversation once you said that you can't do this, once you say you don't believe in the One Piece, we're not on the same wavelength anymore. Luffy's like, I don't who is this Bellamy fella? I don't know who he is. All this stuff he's doing, he's spitting on me, he's putting me against the table. All of that means nothing. Because he doesn't exist to me. We're not on the same wavelength. We're not in the same reality. And so when he looks at Blackbeard, an individual that, as the fans, we know has done so many bad things leading up to his introduction, and yet he's the only person here who believes in the same thing as Luffy, and as a matter of fact tells him that people's dreams never end, and also tells him, yo, the Sky Island does exist. Go out and get it. And then reaffirms that fact when we see him again in Impel Down. And he's like, yo, did you make it up to Sky Island, my boy? It's a nice place, isn't it? Like, and then tells him again about the One Piece. It's just we're seeing dreams and desires of individuals whom, normally speaking, in our reality, most individuals would be like, he doesn't deserve to dream. Look at what he's done. Most people would look at a Blackbeard and say, he does not deserve to dream. He's an individual who's done way too many bad things to dream. And Oda's telling all the viewers that every single human being who has ever drawn breath has desires and dreams. It is up to, of course, the individuals that are reading the series to accept that, acknowledge that, and or, have that conversation as to who has the right to dream, who has the right to desire, to explore those things, and go after what it is that they want to accomplish. But through pirates, through the idea of pirates introduced so early on with Shanks, and how pirates aren't like they aren't noble individuals. They fight dirty. They do things their way, and if you don't like the way they do things, you're just gonna get whooped in the process, right? And so the freedom to be able to do that is what makes One Piece in regards to, we see so like the exploration of dreams and desire throughout every single arc. The desires of the people manifesting themselves in Luffy showing up and freeing their kingdom. Or the manifestation of Luffy's will while climbing up Drum Island, carrying Nami and Sanji with him as he barely makes it alive up there to Dr. Kureha and Chopper and them, right? Chopper's desire to fight and protect his people turned alongside the Rumble Ball allowed him to change into multiple different forms, right? And we see the manifestation of will throughout the series turning into like Zoro's Ashura or Sanji's Diablo Jumble, or Luffy going after being inspired by other individuals. He manifests Gear 2nd. His desire creates Gear 3rd. He sees Gear 4th, is inspired by it, he creates it with his own body. There's just so many different things. And like you said, the children back in the day, there must have been some people who wanted superpowers. They must have read the stories, the legends, right? Especially if there was stories like the Sora Warrior of the Sea stuff. Because I remember me as a kid, even me now, I still, dream about having superpowers and abilities and stuff that is just not logical. But you believe like with your childlike imagination, as if something like that were possible, that you would love to have this ability or this ability or this ability. And what Devil Fruits have allowed is the manifestation of all those desires within the world itself, to the point to where when someone awakens, and I always think back to Kaido's explanation of awakenings. And to me, that explanation of awakenings is universal. That's something you can apply to any career path, to anyone who has finally reached the pinnacle of their form, right? It's whenever your skill set, your experiences finally catch up to your ambition. And your ambitions and your skill set are perfectly aligned to where now you can enter the zone. Now you can enter the flow state. Now you can enter the pinnacle of what you can do as an individual. And that is what awakening is for each and every single person who can accomplish that. As we saw through, of course, what Kaido said, but from what we saw Luffy do, Luffy finally was able to have his imagination not be restricted by what he's able to do as an individual. Gear 5 allows him to do whatever it is that he pleases within that form, to allow his imagination to run wild. And I honestly do believe, going back to the Bonnie comment, that of course is triggered by your experiences, your traumas, your desires, what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. And it's just so cool to me the way that this stuff has been showcased visually throughout the course of the series. And I look forward to seeing how it is showcased within the Void Century. Because when we start seeing, obviously, the first fruit, which I'm going to assume is going to be Oda's version of, like, the story in the book of Genesis, right? With Adam and Eve, humans falling to their own desires for sin. Eve eats the fruit, and the world is forever doomed to ruin after that, right? Like, I wonder how the story's going to play out when the Void Century, whenever the desires of everyone who's alive is finally manifested, and how they react to it. Like, what took place back in the day? Did they try to limit these desires, right? It was stated even in chapter 1069 that, like, nature itself, that this is something that defied nature itself. So it's like, were these also scientific explorations? Are the fruits a culmination of all the scientific research they did back during the Void Century and before? Or is this something that was created by nature that was then, like, adjusted by humans? Or, like, what did they mean by these things being, like, directly like, nature's here, fruits are here, and, like, they're just colliding? So I wonder, is it that they're not allowed to exist? Is that why individuals can't swim? Because it's not something that should exist within the world. And if it's not supposed to exist within the world, then shouldn't that make you want to crave it even more? Because this is something that's not supposed to be here. This is like that 1 in 1,000,000% you could possibly have, right? So it's like all these different things when it comes to what we desire as people and what we want to do, what we want to accomplish, that has made One Piece resonate with so many different individuals, no matter where they come from, because that is something that is universal, right? I'm saying this as somebody who lives over here. You may be watching this as someone who lives on a completely other continent than I do, and you may feel these same exact things because it's something that's universal. And so within the One Piece world, how could it not be? Who doesn't want to use fire? Who doesn't want to use ice? Who doesn't want to do all these things to get closer to accomplishing what they want to accomplish, right? So I really, really wonder what the more I hear about this type of stuff, the more I want to know what the origin of fruits actually is. Because it's like, what caused it? And what caused Mother Nature herself to be like, nah, not that. You know, to the point to where it's like cursed. So much interest, man. So much interest. But no, this was a fantastic comment already, man. Thank you so much for that. There's so much that we could talk about in regards to the differences and the similarities, dreams and desires, and stuff of that nature. But it's just, I love how he's done it so far. I love how he's done it so far by showcasing it through multiple different characters, and by, you know, even when it comes to the collective desire, right? The collective desire of individuals wanting something to take place, and then it takes place. Like back in Skypiea, when everybody just wanted to be freed from NL's reign, and Usagi would just pray, look up in the skies, and Luffy made it happen. You know, even when it comes to the desires of the people in other kingdoms, right? It's just, I wonder how far Oda's going to take this thing. And I love it. I love what he's done with it so far. But there's just so much that could potentially be explored with such a massive idea that I just think is very interesting. I just think it's very interesting, and personally, because it is one of the things I love most about the series, is the theme of dreams. Is that he continues to explore it down the line, especially with accompanying the will and desires and stuff like that, because it's so interesting to me. But thank you so much for that, Arend. Next comment comes in from Yatin. who says, I think the big news would be that Vegapunk is killed by Luffy, but in reality, the world government would kill him. So it would be similar to like the Cobra thing, where Cobra assassinated by Inu or the Gorosei, and then is framed and puts the blame on Sabo, and Sabo is framed for Cobra's death. I could most certainly see something like that taking place. Absolutely. Because either way, it's going to be either Vegapunk was killed by Luffy or Vegapunk was kidnapped by Luffy. Either way, he's going to be blamed for what took place to Vegapunk, or what took place with Vegapunk here on Egghead Island. 110%. 100%. I think that's going to be a part of the big news, but not the entire thing of the big news. Because Morgan's is already implied, right, that he's gonna have to write about this particular thing, about Vegapunk either being kidnapped or, as you said, killed. So we already know Morgan's gonna be talking about that, man. But thank you. Next one comes in from Safa, who says, the Egghead incident just got me 100 times more hyped for this arc, and I was already loving it. I feel the same way, dude. Like, the Egghead incident, what's about to take place, the fact that they're talking about this, like this is going to be something way more catastrophic than what happened in Ohara, something on the level of the God Valley incident. Like, it's just, my expectations for this arc have grown exponentially after this. It's like you said, it just got 100 times more hyped for this arc. And we were already extremely hyped and loving it, so great stuff, man. Safa, thank you. Super comes in and says, I have 2 thoughts to share, so I'm going to explain them as much easily as I can. First, the climax was very good. Leads too many thoughts. Egghead incident might refer to many things. However, I think the Gorosei versus Gear 5 might lead to the potential flashback of Kuma. So my theory regarding everything that happened already has to have some connection with Kuma's flashback and somehow make it relevant. At this point, I don't see a proper way to represent Kuma's flashback in the Crying Bonnie. Kind of, I feel like we skipped the flashback for a later part. Still, I think Kuma was on God Valley as a child. Was on God Valley as a child. Then we might, then the scene that we saw might be God Valley. Kuma's 47 and God Valley happened 38 years ago. That's a good point. So which will lead to that. And also explain why Roger and Garp tried to save Celestial Dragons 2 from Rocks. Rocks might be trying to kill everyone. That is also a likely scenario. Although I still am down with the idea that Rocks is, similar to Blackbeard. He was just someone who was willing to do absolutely anything to achieve his dreams. He was just an opportunistic individual who saw the opportunity presented before him, had to take it, willing to, of course, believe in absolutely anything. His ambitions were so high to be king of the world. How could he not believe in all these things? They're minuscule compared to his dreams and his desires, right? So I wonder what, if that was actually the case, right? Where Rocks went there just trying to eliminate all the Celestial Dragons, or was he trying to do something else there? Because the thing is, right, looking at it from our perspective, wouldn't Rocks be the quote-unquote good individual there, knowing how just terrible the Celestial Dragons are? The fact that Rocks was trying to get rid of them, and Roger and Garp were protecting them. And we know that Roger potentially left there with Shanks, Kuma potentially being there as well. As you said, it's like the God Valley incident is going to answer so many things. But Rocks going after the Celestial Dragons, it's like we know how Garp feels about them. He stated how he felt about them within the series. So it just makes you wonder why. And potentially that could be one of the reasons why. Where maybe Rocks wanted to take out everyone. Not just the Celestial Dragons that were adults, but the Celestial Dragons who were children as well. So Roger and Garp were like, nah, we can't allow that to happen. We can't allow the next generation of children to be taken out here, because they could learn from the mistakes of their ancestors. They could learn from the mistakes of their fathers. And that would actually be great for Roger. For Roger to protect the Celestial Dragons, knowing that the sins of the father does not carry on to the son. Exactly the same thing that Oda was exploring with Roger and Ace. Oh, that'd be so beautiful. So beautiful. As a matter of fact, I would love that. I would love that. But next is about the narrator. There is a thing in the fan base. The narrator is the character who's telling the story. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the narrator, what Oda's going for with, is very similar to what J.R. Tolkien did in his story. Right? So I do believe that potentially that could be one of the Straw Hats that's going back and telling this tale. Could be an Usopp. Could be a character that we've already seen within the series, who's going to end up writing a book. We know Sabo is planning on writing a book one day, though I'm not sure if it's going to be about these particular events. But I do believe that the narrator is probably a character in this story, still in the story. This chapter narrator dialogue makes kind of sure about that fact. He literally said the incident will happen tomorrow, so he has all the knowledge about the story of One Piece. Absolutely. So who might that person be? My opinion is it's Sabo, okay? He completed his dream and is now writing the story. Absolutely could be very well be the case. Just think Luffy telling the incidents to Sabo when he's writing them. I mean, Yamato is also a great possibility as well. Because I do believe that Yamato has all of the writings on the wall for Yamato being an author or writer as well. But Sabo is already stated within the series that is his dream, so I can most certainly see that being the case. And Usopp, recording the adventure, telling about the quote-unquote lies that have taken place, which are actually truths. If Brook is alive at the end of the series, I fully expect him to tell the tales of the Straw Hats through music, which would be really cool as well. So there's a few different characters that could say it, or there's a chance he might be present during the Egghead incident. This kind of thought going on in my head, so just shared it. So you think if Sabo is the one writing the tale, then we're going to see him within this arc, because he would have to, be present in order to tell about it. That's very interesting. Hope you have an awesome day, King, and stay blessed and happy. Yo, super. Thank you for the awesome comment. Great stuff. I do hope that, like you said, the Kuma flashback still takes place, and it's going to. He's built it up for so long that we have to get this Kuma flashback. But if the Kuma flashback is going to be the God Valley incident flashback, then it would make sense. God, man, that's going to be one of the greatest flashbacks in the whole series. From the God Valley incident over to Kuma as a tyrant. Oh, man, Kuma might have like a top 3 flashback in this series, dude. He really might. He really might, man. That's a lot of greatness. That's a lot of greatness. So thank you for that, Subra. The next one comes in from my boy Michael D. Mickles, who says, great stream for this chapter. Sorry I missed it. Nah, man, no worries, my dog. Egghead has you going over 2 hours like back in the day. It's just that it's too good, bro. We almost went 3 hours in the last stream. Anyway, I really can't see the revolutionaries getting involved since Vegapunk, ironically Shaka, did tell Dragon that he might be killed soon. That's a great point. Also, what do you think about Dragon having a mythical fruit? Having a mythical fruit of a Quetzalcoatl? What in the flying flatters is that? Which is known to control air and wind. Hold on. Let me search that up. To the Aztecs, the Quetzalcoatl was, as its name indicates, a feathered serpent, a flying reptile much like a dragon who was boundary maker and transgressor between earth and sky. Creator deity having... Yo! I did not know... Dude, this would be a really cool... Ooh, look at this! Oh, man. Yo, this would be cool. This would actually be super, super cool. A mythical ability like this for Dragon. Oh, man, I think that'd be really cool. About Quetzalcoatl, which is known to control air and wind and looks very similar to dragons themselves. Keep up the outstanding work, King. Thanks. So, Michael, going to this Quetzalcoatl, and that's how he's able to manipulate the weather. That's why he has this weather ability. So, going off of your comment, if we were to see him utilize that ability here, the desires of man. The desires of man coming into fruition. Could Dragon... So if Dragon pulls up to Egghead Island, he uses his ability, right? Maybe the one who states his ability could very well be Garcia Saturn himself. Because, there's a lot of different possibilities with what Garcia Saturn will say when he gets here, if the Straw Hats are still here and if Dragon's here. Because he could be the one to answer about the Sanji Lunarian thing, where he might look at Sanji and be like, oh, I thought King was the last Lunarian. And there we might get our answer in regards to Sanji's potential lineage right there that we've all been speculating about. Dragon's ability, where if Dragon utilizes ability, he's like, man, I haven't seen the Quetzalcoatl in over 800 years, whatever it is, right? Like, and of course the one we're all looking forward to the most, which is the Garcia Saturn looking at Nika, which is the one thing he wanted to stop at all costs. So all of that could potentially take place. But if Dragon pulls up utilizing this ability, I would not be surprised if we find out what his ability is through a narration by, say, Jay Garcia Saturn. Because I'm going to assume he has all of that knowledge, right? But thank you, Michael Mickles. Next comment comes from Hollow Sama, who says, just imagine all 100 Navy ships rolling in a naked island when out of nowhere all the ships blow away, crashing into each other with the power of none other than Monkey D. Dragon. Dude, I didn't even know this comment was next. I would have paired it with the other. That's just a manifestation of all the desires, man. Sailing in just on just one revolutionary ship. If Dragon blows away 100 Navy ships, that's gonna be one of the best feats in the series. How hype would that be? Bro, you want to talk about Dragon hype? The Dragon hype is already out of this world. Dragon does something like that to 100 Navy ships? Double the size of Marineford? The question is, will they show up and hold off the Navy/WG long enough for Straws to escape? After Luffy beats down the Golden Monkey and smacks Saturn in the face, of course. You know, him potentially smacking Saturn the same way he did Charlos would be one of the craziest moments in the whole series, man. Like, seriously. A member of the Gorosei getting smacked? I mean, this already feels like a smack in the face, the fact that Nika and Joy Boy exists out in the world once again. But for him to physically, like, deck him in the grill? I do wonder, like, what's going to happen with Garcia Saturn and Kizaru? There's just so many different factors. The next comment comes from Keon YT, who says, I can't help but think there's something significant about the desire, Vegapunk being the traitor. After the Stellus, we all owe there is to Desire speech, 100%. Overall, though, every chapter that goes by, things are looking worse and worse for the crew on Egghead. We keep getting more and more split up, and there's an ominous feeling we're being picked off one by one. That's how I feel about it too, Kian. Not sure how big an L Oda plans on handing the Straw Hats, but I think he'll be looking to knock down the reader's confidence in the crew just a peg to raise the stakes ahead of the final arc, similar to what Sabaody did before the Summit War. And I could see that being the case, right? Even if they don't get completely defeated, we're going to realize just how much we're dealing with by the end of this saga. The devastating effects of messing with the Marines and or being present in a scenario where all of us are not completely together, right? Because we could afford to be separated and multiple different points before this, but if we're not all together, that's one of the things that made Sabaody such a brilliant arc, is we were all together and we still got wiped out. So in this arc, it feels like we're intentionally getting separated so that something like that can happen again, because whoever is, York and the individuals manipulating this, they understand the Straw Hats all together, it's going to be very, very difficult to take them all on at once. So what are they trying to do? Separate them and ensure that when potentially the ships pull up, they're not all together. And that highly increases the chances of them achieving a victory, right, over the Straw Hat Pirates. So because my whole thing is, I don't see the Straw Hats losing. Like, I don't see them completely losing like they did back in Sabaody, but I do see them barely getting out of here by the skin of their teeth. I can most certainly see that being the case. Or we could exercise full Yonko energy and they just go in and do their thing. And they're like, yo, no, we're this is an Emperor's crew, dog. Kizaru pulls up, let's go. Let's throw down. St. J. Garcia Saturn pulls up, let's go. Let's throw down. 100 battleships show up, Grand Fleet comes in. You know, like, it could go so many different ways. But you're absolutely right about the fact that Oda could potentially be setting up the stakes being heightened to an extremely high degree to set the standard, just to set this tone for the rest of the final saga. That's also very likely. Thank you, Kian YT. And also in regards to the significance about the desire, Vegapunk being the traitor, and we all there is desire speech, 100%. That feels like it's going to be not only one of the most important speeches in the series, but especially for this arc as well. Recon, my boy, says, hey brother, couldn't make it to the stream, but here to comment now. No worries, my man. I'm very confident that something's going to happen to Saturn. Just like how near the end of Sabaody, Luffy punches the Celestial Dragon, I think he's going to do something even more monumental to Saturn / pack up Kizaru. Could you imagine him doing something crazy to St. J. Garcia Saturn and he packs up Kizaru? I mean, I'm one of the individuals that expects Kizaru to awaken in this arc. So imagine an awakened Kizaru taking an L right here and now. plus something happening to St. Diego Garcia Saturn. In my opinion, Kuma's stories will be told as the Egghead incident is going down, and it will surely parallel the events of that day. This arc is peak, brother. Dude, yes! Just like I said earlier, and how Subra was talking about the God Valley incident, right? And Kuma's flashback being saved for later, you're absolutely right that is a story, flashback that could be told as the Egghead incident is going down, showing the parallels between the two. This arc is truly peak, my man. Thank you for that comment. Let's go from Prey Taurus. Says separating aspects of the psyche allows each to maximize its potential. E.g., logic can be perfected without wrath and desire. Desires are mostly those innocuous things like eating, sleeping, going to the toilet. We always have dark or excessive desires like imagine if I was a celestial dragon. Exactly, right? That we quickly push to the back of our thoughts with logic and morality. But desire is not something we control or produce ourselves, and can often betray our own will. That is a factual statement. But shackling, I like that. Shackling desire becomes all-consuming greed. That is a great point. I really like what Oda is doing by making the classic runaway scientific innovation destroying us, our own infinite want for more expressing itself in the technology. That is a great point. That is a great point. That is exactly what Oda is trying to do here. Tying core One Piece themes of desire, imagination, and dreams to the future is such a genius way to make a science fiction arc work. 150%. As a matter of fact, it couldn't work any better, I would argue. Oda is developing these themes through 1069's Fruit explanation. Punk Records is Mother C. Punk Records is Mother C. A sea of information. An internet world for all mankind to exist and innovate / evolve in. I've never thought about that possibility. Where, space is often referred to as the sea of the stars. And the internet could, surfing through the web, sea of information. That's interesting. Mother C is also separated into her children / living beings. By being separate, their desires become separate from the reality they exist in. That's imagination, and imagination beyond natural needs are dreams. Yes, in One Piece, dreams that conflict with reality become expressed in it as fruits, and Mother C tries to eliminate the paradox. Yes. York is almost an exact analog of Blackbeard, who gathers fruits / desires, defies logic by having two, consumes everything with his fruit, and also manipulated the world into a war by playing both sides. Probably all for Rox's will to be the king of the world. How he relates to Mother C and how Luffy is the foal of both, as imagination and the sun, the infinite energy that makes dreams come true, and likely the fuel that Vegapunk dreams of, is going to be huge for the thematic conclusions of One Piece. For the first time in ages, it feels like the Jaya Skypiea themes, and it's so exciting. Brave Taurus, I don't know if I can add anything to this comment, man. This comment is brilliant. I mean, you nailed it. This is without question what is currently taking place, and what could potentially take place down the line with the likes of Blackbeard, Monkey D, the importance of 1069's Fruit explanation, Punk Records potentially being what Mother C was in the past, but now to the future, right? Like a Punk Records type of system, right? Attempting to replicate exactly what Mother C is, because like I said before, if that 1069 speech really was on a small scale what the individuals of the Voice Century had to do with on a large scale, then why couldn't Punk Records also represent on a small scale what the original Mother C did with the fruits? Or that Punk Records is in and of itself the modern day Mother C, right? A sea of information. But you're absolutely right, man. You're absolutely right, and like you said, for the thematically, it really does feel like Jaya and Skypiea again, and there's nothing better than that, right? From a thematic standpoint. So it's just, man, thank you for the comment, Brave Taurus. I mean, brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. This is why I love doing these afterthoughts, man. Gold Slash comes in and says, I had completely forgotten York was greed. Knowing that her betrayal makes sense. It really does, right? Greed from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood was also the one to betray father and do his own thing. Shout out to Greed from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, man. Also, if York got turned to stone, who freed her? Yeah. That's a great point. Or was that a fake out? It could have been a fake out. Could have been is it possible to clone? Like have two different versions of York? One York is moving while the other one's going around. Could this go and be with like an unseen ability? Or potentially York had a something within her to like a sea stone type of thing that would immediately like dispel it after a certain amount of time. Oh, actually, that actually makes sense, because if Hancock's ability is imperfect, right, and compared to the original Hancock's ability, then it would make sense that it would wear off after a certain amount of time. So maybe York waited for the time limit to go off before she left and exited while everybody else was dealing with Hancock in that situation. I really want to know what the answer to that is, because either that wasn't the real York, or it was York, but she managed to escape by some sort of sea stone mechanism, not having the fruit be able to be utilized to its fullest potential, or it's just because the ability is imperfect that York was able to get out of there after being hit with the ability. Or maybe she purposefully allowed herself to get hit to make it seem like she was already taken out, which is exactly what I believe Oda was doing, and then she was able to move freely because of it. Right? Frankie and the rest got blown out down below, so we couldn't see exactly. Zoro and Kaku probably end up meeting Bonnie, somehow knowing Zoro is going to find the other secret room by accident. It was Bonnie who interacted with Zoro when he was wandering Sabaody. Rob Gucci and Kaku Saba looking ready to join the Grand Fleet. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Right? But in terms of Zoro finding Bonnie, that's an interesting scenario I didn't think of. Very, very interesting. Another Thriller Bark parallel? Potentially having Zoro there? I'm down with that Gold Slash. I never thought about that possibility. That's actually really cool. Well, on the way down to try to find Mihawk, he runs into Jewelry Bonnie. I like that. I like that. Thank you, yo. Next comment comes from Super Alatriano, says, my one small thing for this chapter is York replying to Stella's warnings about how bad the Celestial Dragons are, with you sound just like Shaka. That was a very interesting comment. This could simply be there to show that Shaka was against the Celestials in general. It also made me wonder if Shaka had previously voiced those concerns to York directly. That might be a great point. We know York must have some method to act on the radar without the other punks realizing, so it's not so far-fetched to wonder if Shaka had found out the truth about York's plans, but York erased his memories / prevented him from uploading those specific ones to punk records. That's a great point. So the next day they could go back to normal like nothing happened. The memories erased aspect, or there being missing chunks of Shaka's recollection of the past 3 months, just seems like it has its interesting potential. Exploring the erasure of memories within an arc like this is not too far-fetched, considering what has taken place with Kuma. So if we were to explore that Vegapunk himself has, or at least the models of Vegapunk, right, like the units, have explored with the reconfiguration of memories, what's real, what's fake type of thing, if there's any arc to explore the same things that are normally seen within sci-fi stories about the future in regards to what's fake, what's real, what's an illusion, what's not an illusion, it would be messing with someone's memories. And if there's any type of scenario to bring that into, it would be something like this. Because you're absolutely right. How could York keep all this information away, not just from Shaka, but from everyone else as well? It would have to have been to potentially Shaka, being the type of individual that he was, being the legend that he was, caught onto her plans. She managed to not only erase his memory, but potentially change around the memories of every single other person that's there as well, right? In terms of the Vegapunk units. So no one would be suspicious of her. That's so interesting. That is so interesting, and like you said, it does have a lot of potential and just makes sense thematically for an arc like this. Love it. Thank you. So we have a few more here. Let me see. Brandon King comes in and says, I think we're setting up for a big marine failure soon, because there's a pattern people have been noticing. 2 arcs ago, Reverie was the cause of the Warlord system being dismantled. 1 arc ago, Wano, the Yonko system, became destabilized. That's 2 of the 3 great powers in the last 2 arcs taking blows to their credibility. So I'm betting whatever happens on Egghead is a huge blow to the last one. Great point. The WG/Marines. So whether this means Luffy slaps Saturn like Charlos, Emu gets revealed to the world. Emu getting revealed to the world could be a major... That is the biggest incident in the history of the verse. If Emu gets revealed to the world. You know what I'm saying? That is the biggest of all time. There is no other incident in the history of One Piece that besides what happened in the Void Century. I'm sure that's the biggest one. But besides that, it would be Instant Master Song being revealed to the whole world. or Kizaru dies somehow. The Marines about to take a huge L. Yes, I can most certainly see that happening. I mean, could you imagine sending? I would consider it to be a failure, even if some of this stuff didn't happen. Because imagine being the Marines in the situation, right? You've expended so many resources to ensure that Vegapunk gets assassinated here. You've expended these resources to ensure that you corner Emperor Straw Hat Luffy here. And imagine if both of them end up escaping and you take so many different losses on your side. Imagine out of your 100 ships, most of them end up getting taken out. Imagine the admiral you sent got defeated. Imagine the Gorosei member that went with him also got defeated. So maybe they don't have to die or stuff of that nature. That's still a massive L. They were unable to accomplish what they put into motion for 3 months. They planned this. It's not like it caught them off guard. They planned this. They just didn't plan for Luffy showing up. But the fact remains that they sent 100 ships with an admiral and a member of the Gorosei. And if they were not able to get the job done, that is a massive failure. Let alone if Imu gets revealed. Let alone if Kizaru gets killed, right? Or Saturn gets Charlos. Like, then that adds even more to the L. So I agree with you 100%, Brandon King. And that's actually a great point about the Reverie causing the Wordless system to be dismantled in the Wano, about the Yonko system becoming destabilized, and now the Marines potentially having theirs. Right? That's a fantastic point. That is all the time that we have for this week's Afterthoughts. Thank you all so much for your incredible comments this week. So many good ones, man. It's a shame we weren't able to go through all of them, but we got through some really, really good ones, man. So I appreciate y'all for taking the time to not only watch the mammoth stream we had on Thursday, but also this incredible Afterthoughts as well. So I will see y'all for the next installment in the best-selling manga in history later on in the week. But until then, this chapter is going to continue to resonate and stay within our minds for as long as possible, because who knows when we're going to see the payoff to what the narrator said in this week's chapter. Could be a couple chapters, could be tens of chapters, who knows? Because the Egghead incident is about to go down, and I can't even imagine what Oda has in store. I will see y'all. Take care. One Piece greatness, man.